Hello everyone, welcome back to my channel. This is your favorite biology teacher, Sharuk Shansi. I am here to take you through topic number 2 of the AS Cambridge syllabus, which is none other than biological molecules. So in this topic, we are going to learn about large biological molecules and the small subunits that make them up. We are going to learn about the structure of carbohydrates, lipids, proteins, and how the structure of those molecules is related to their functions. We are expected to know how to carry out food tests, or what they call biochemical tests, to identify carbohydrates such as starch, reducing sugars, to identify lipids, and to identify proteins. And still, by the end of the topic, we should be able to describe the properties of water and how they are able to make life possible. So let's dive into it. We are starting with a branch of biology called molecular biology. Some of you would want to study further and specialize in biological molecules. So you might go into a branch of biology called molecular biology, where you study about different biological molecules, their structures, and how they are related to the function. So this is where you're going to find scientists learning about the structure of proteins, maybe the structure of hemoglobin, the structure of myoglobin, antibodies, DNA, and how the structure of those molecules is related to their functions. So molecular biology is a branch of biology that mainly deals with studying biological molecules. Now, why do we need to learn about these biological molecules? Remember that within our cells, chemical reactions occur. And for those chemical reactions to occur, these molecules are so much needed for the reactions to occur. So this takes us to biochemistry, the chemical reactions within our bodies where biological molecules are involved. And we are going to learn that there is always a link between the structure of a molecule and its function. If a protein performs a particular role, the structure of that particular protein is so much closely related to the function that it is going to be playing within a cell. And if someone mentions about metabolism, it's all about the sum of all the biochemical reactions that occur within the body. Now, when you look at these biological molecules, they are the building blocks of life. They make life possible. These molecules, remember, are going to be taking part in biochemical reactions, in chemical reactions. And when you look at these molecules, they are made up of elements. So they are going to be made up of chemical elements such as hydrogen, carbon, oxygen, and nitrogen. And these chemical elements account for 99% of the atoms that are found within living organisms. So, like when you look at an example of carbon, carbon is one of the most abundant elements in life. Why is carbon so important? If you learn about carbon, some of you who do chemistry, I'm sure you know that carbon is able to form long chains. And as we learn about these biological molecules, some of them have very long chains. Why? Simply because they are made up of carbon. So carbon is very important in providing a foundation for basic skeletons of organic molecules to be made. And you're going to look at examples of these molecules and how carbon plays a role in these molecules. So most of these molecules are organic. When someone talks about the organic, we are mainly looking at molecules that are containing mainly carbon and hydrogen. And we have simple biological molecules. Let's start with the simple biological molecules. So most of these biological molecules are complex, but they are made up of simple molecules. Let's take an example. If someone is going to build a house, when they are building a house might have large walls, but the walls of the house are made by joining smaller subunits. An example, if you want to build a house, you will find that you're going to get concrete blocks. or bricks, and you join them together, one to the next, one to the next, one to the next, and before you know it, you're going to have a very large wall. Then those very many walls will combine together to form a house. So even when it comes to these biological molecules, most of them are large molecules and very complex, but they are made up of subunits, which we are calling the simple biological molecules. So those simple biological molecules are joined together to form the large complex biological molecules. An example, when you look at carbohydrates, when you look at carbohydrates or polysaccharides, for them, they are made up of what we call monosaccharides. Like this is a monosaccharide. We are going to look at monosaccharides and how they join to form polysaccharides. When you look at nucleic acids such as DNA or RNA, they are made up of nucleotides. But for nucleotides to be made, we have sugars, which are monosaccharides, and some bases joining to form these nucleotides. So simple molecules join so that they form a large molecule like a nucleic acid. Proteins. Proteins are made up of simple molecules known as amino acids. Lipids. Lipids are large molecules, complex biological molecules, but they are made up of simpler biological molecules known as fatty acids and glycerol. We are going to look at all these simple biological molecules and the large complex biological molecules so that we understand how these simple molecules make up the large molecules in further detail as we go along in the topic. So there are also three terms that we have to understand before we continue. We have the term monomer. So we have a monomer. We have this other term polymer. We have this other term macromolecule. Now let's start with the term macromolecule. Macro, when someone asks you what is a macromolecule, the word macro simply means something that is giant. So these are large molecules. And we have three types of macromolecules that are very important in biology. We have the polysaccharides, we have the proteins, sometimes called polypeptides. We also have the nucleic acids, that is DNA or RNA, which is also sometimes called polynucleotides. Now, when you look at all the three types, they have a word that is common amongst them, poly. The word poly means many. So these macromolecules, most of the macromolecules are polymers. But there are some macromolecules which are not polymers, and you're going to look at examples. But most of the macromolecules are polymers. Why are they called polymers? Because when you look at these molecules, they are made up of small subunits. Remember the example I gave you of a wall? You have one unit joined to the next. One unit joined to the next. One unit joined to the next. Before you know it, you're going to form a very large molecule that is made up of thousands or millions of repeating subunits. Repeating subunits. Now, these subunits are going to be very many. That is why we have the word poly. Poly means many. So these macromolecules are polymers, and a polymer is a molecule that is made up of many repeating subunits. Like you can see, this is a polymer. That is a polymer, the one I've just drawn on the screen. That is a polymer. Why am I calling it a polymer? It is made up of these subunits. They are repeating. So you find polymers can be made up of these subunits in a chain. Maybe they could be over 10,000 or 1,000 or millions of these subunits. So a polymer is a large molecule that is made up of many repeating subunits. And most of the time, these subunits are identical to each other or they are similar. These subunits can also be called monomers. Mono means one. So they can be called monomers. So a monomer is a subunit that can be joined to form a polymer. So polymers are made up of monomers. So this is a monomer, another monomer, another monomer, another monomer. And when they are all joined together to form a very large molecule, they form what we call a polymer. So polysaccharides are made up of many saccharides. Proteins are called polypeptides because they're going to have many peptide bonds. Nucleic acids are called polynucleotides because they are made up of many nucleotides. We are going to look at all these details and you'll be able to understand each one of them very clearly as we go on in the lesson. So when you look at these monomers, they are joined by bonds. So you'll find certain bonds holding them together. One monomer joined to another by a bond. One monomer joined to another by a bond. And there is a type of chemical reaction that allows these bonds to be formed between the monomers so that a polymer is made. So such a type of reaction is called a condensation reaction. And you're going to look at how a condensation reaction occurs. And all the biological molecules you're going to learn about are made up of these monomers joined together, but they are joined using bonds. And you're going to look at examples of the bonds in the different polymers. Now, the way these bonds are formed, at the same time, the bonds can be broken. So we can have a reaction where we have this polymer broken down back to its individual subunits. And that type of reaction that breaks down a polymer to its individual subunits is called hydrolysis. Hydro means water, lysis means breaking. Hydro means water, lysis means breaking. So these bonds are going to be broken using water. So water is added usually to break these bonds. And we are going to look at examples of processes where this reaction of hydrolysis occurs. So basically, that is it about polymers and monomers. Polymers are large, giant biological molecules or large molecules that are made up of many repeating subunits. Let's look at an example here. They are asking us a question. The question is mentioning that amylose and triglyceride, the triglyceride they are talking about is called styrene, are macromolecules. Explain why amylose and styrene are macromolecules, but only amylose is a polymer. Remember, macros, so this question has two things in one. We have to explain why is it called a macromolecule. Macro, because it is large. So you could simply say that amylose and styrene are large molecules. They are both large molecules. They are large in size, or they have a large molecular mass. So or you could say they are giant molecules. That is why they are called macromolecules. But they are telling us that only amylose is a polymer. So we have to give reasons. Why is amylose a polymer? We shall learn about the structure of amylose later. But we need to know, we have to relate to this term polymer. So you could simply have mentioned, in case you found such a question, that amylose is a polymer because it is made up of many repeating subunits. As simple as that. It's made up of many repeating subunits. Or it's made up of many repeating monomers. Or many repeating identical subunits. Like an example, amylose is made up of glucose. Yeah, amylose is made up of glucose as a subunit. Okay, so that is our introduction to biological molecules. And in our next lesson, we shall learn about carbohydrates. Those are the polysaccharides, the monosaccharides, the disaccharide, starch, amylose, amylopectin, glycogen, and cellulose. Thank you for keeping around. Please don't forget to subscribe to my channel. See you again in the next lesson. Bye.